What's up guys, welcome to another Tutorial Tuesday. Today's episode is going to be all about how to use filters on your smartphone.
I'm going to use the drift method. Freaking incredible. Round F16 for that to get that sunburst.
So I've done quite a few videos on smartphones by now, and a few of them have had to do with filters. So I did one on how to get cinematic footage out of your cell phone, and I've done one on how to shoot waterfalls. And in those videos I'm using filters, but I haven't really explained like the hows or the whys. And I've got a lot of comments from you guys asking for a more detailed video on the hows and the whys of filters for your smartphone. So I'm going to go over how and why I use a filter on my smartphone, and when. That's really important too. So we'll talk about how, why, and when to use a smartphone filter, to use a filter with your smartphone. So definitely the most obvious reason, at least to me, maybe it's not obvious, is the most common reason to use a filter for a smartphone or any type of photography is waterfalls. So that's what I got behind me here. I've got a nice waterfall, and I'm going to show you a little bit more how to do that. There is another in-depth video that I did on that, and if you haven't seen that and you want to check it out, you can look up here, yeah, right up there, and I'll link that video up there. But waterfalls are definitely not the only reason that you would want to or need to use a filter, so we're going to go over the rest of that. But I'm going to get away from this noisy water area first. All right, so why would you want to use filter for smartphones? Well, there's a few reasons. We've already established that waterfalls are one, so that you can slow the water down, or so you can slow your shutter speed down to get that smooth, silky water look. Another reason is, and probably the biggest reason, especially for me, is video. And this is something that's often overlooked because it's a kind of a cinematic principle that people don't really tend to think about, and that's the 180-degree shutter rule. So if you don't know about cinematic video or making cinematic video and you want to learn, especially with your smartphone, I did a video that you can check out up here called How to Get Better Cinematic Footage with Your Smartphone, and that goes into detail about all aspects of cinematography and smartphones and getting better video. But suffice it to say, neutral density filters will help you get the 1/50th of a second shutter speed that you need to shoot proper Hollywood type video on your smartphone. And any smartphone with a pro mode or a manual mode can do that. But in bright daylights, you need to have a filter on there. Otherwise, because the aperture on the smartphones is fixed, so it's always wide open, and that's too much light. So you have to have an ND filter to cut that down to get the exposure that you need to satisfy your 1/50th of a second shutter. Not just for cinematic video, but I also use it for vlogging. If I ever do a vlog, usually I vlog on my bigger cameras, but sometimes my bigger cameras are busy and I need to still do the vlog, so I'll do it on my phone. And to do that, I still want that cinematic look, so I'll use the ND filter. So here's a vlog that I did. You can check out. I did all with my smartphone, and I had filters on there, and I had the 1/50th shutter rule and all that stuff. So you can check that out if you want to see more detail on that. Okay, another one that's kind of video is time lapses. So time lapses are basically videos, but you take pictures at different intervals and then you add them all together and you end up with, like, you know, a few hundred pictures, and that'll end up with like a 10-second exposure, a 10-second video clip or something. Time lapses fall under the same rule for the 180-degree rule of the shutter. So it's common practice that when you do a time lapse video, you want your shutter speed to be half your interval time. So if you have an interval time of 2 seconds, you need a shutter speed of 1 full second to get that natural motion blur. Well, there's no way I can get a full second shutter on this in bright daylight without using a filter. And in some cases, I have to stack those filters to make it dark enough to get a full second. Sometimes you need a filter for your time lapses to get that right exposure, just like you would for video. So photography, during the daytime, there's a few times where I might want to use a filter other than a waterfall, and that might be if I want to take pictures of lightning or there's crazy clouds in the sky. If I want to do light trails like in the evening or even at nighttime in the city, doing light trails, you need a longer shutter speed, and oftentimes in the city or anywhere there would be lights, like the cars flying by and stuff, it's still going to be too much of an ambient light for you to have a couple second long shutter speed. So you might still want to use a filter. I did a video on that up here, you can check that out, and that was more specific to the S9, but I did use the filters to get those light trails. So those are kind of all the situations where I would use a filter, especially with a smartphone. So now what we'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll show you exactly more detail what these are and how I'm using them and how to put them on your phone, and then we'll go do a real world example here of shooting these waterfalls behind me. Okay, so let's talk about what specific filters I'm using real quick. I'm using these Neewer ND filters. Neewer, N-E-E-W-E-R, Neewer. I'll have a link for all this stuff in the description below. There's other different kinds of filters, there's other different companies. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm just talking about the stuff that I have. So I have these. They come in this little pouch here. And this particular set is a set of 3. So there's an ND2, an ND4, and an ND8. So those are the varying degrees. The smaller the number, the less dark the filter is. So there's my ND6, and my ND8 is on there. And then I also have a separate, so I bought this one separate, and this one is a nicer filter. It's more expensive. This is a Gobe, G-O-B-E. This is an ND1000, so this is a 10-stop filter. So if you really want to slow this water down, or if you really want to make the daylight dark, then use one of these 10 stops. Otherwise, for most scenarios, the 10 stop is going to be too much, even for the phone, which is surprising given how wide the apertures are, but the 10 stops if you want to go real hardcore. So, and then you can stack these. A lot of times I'll have to stack these guys, and they all have threads, so you can just screw them together like so. So there, now I've got all 3, an ND2, an ND4, and an ND8 all stacked on there. So the other thing that I have, that this clip does not come with this filter set, so it's separate. And I have the link for the clip down below. But this is a standard 37mm clip, and that's why I picked these ones, because they're 37mm, which is a more standard size, so that if I want better filters or more filters in the future, I can add them, and this clip, no matter what company, will work with them. All right, but the one downside to this clip, and probably a bunch of other clips, is that if you have a bigger phone like mine, I have the S9 Plus, and I had this problem when I had the Note 8 as well, is that it won't fit over the case properly. Like, it won't go down far enough to cover my lens, so I got to take the case off. So make sure you think about that when you're looking at your cameras. You have to take the case off, and then you're going to want a tripod, and I use this Ulanzi head, but again, it doesn't matter what head you have. I just like this one because it's metal, there's no springs, and it has a hot shoe mount on top right here, so I can mount a light or a microphone or something. So I've got my case off, I've got it on my tripod, and now I'm just going to take this and we're just going to clip it on there, and now I'm ready to go. As soon as I turn my camera on and I'm looking into it, I'll be able to tell if I need to adjust it to make sure that it's all the way on proper. Okay, so we're all set up, so why don't we go check out this waterfall and see if I can't get a decent shot out of it. All right, one last thing about the filters and the smartphones. If you're gonna be using the filter, most of the times you're gonna wanna be in pro mode or manual mode, depending on what kind of phone you have. So make sure you check that out, whichever kind of phone you have. With the Samsungs, it's pro mode, and you have the ability to adjust all of the exposure times, the shutter speed, the ISO, and all that. And you're gonna need to do that to get these water shots and the night shots and all that. So if you don't know about pro mode and you wanna learn more about it, check out this video right up here. And also check out some of those other videos that I mentioned earlier that I've done with the waterfalls and the long exposure stuff. All of that stuff I go over a little bit about pro mode and how I'm using it. All right, so there it is. That's the how, when, and why I use filters for my smartphone photography and videography. So I hope that helps you with your creativity and getting more out of your smartphones. It's great, everything that you can do with smartphones these days. With a little bit of effort and a couple of extra things like filters, you can get a lot more out of your smartphone and really start doing some awesome photography and videography. So if you like this video and you want to see more stuff like this, definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've got new videos every Tuesday and Friday. If you have any questions about anything that I went over or didn't go over pertaining to the filters and the hows and the whys and the whens, leave those in the comments below and I'll definitely answer them. And if you found this video super helpful, definitely make sure you give me a like. It really helps me out. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.